The sky above New York was clear and blue, the kind of day that made people forget the world was always on edge. But high above the clouds, something huge had arrived. It came without warning. One moment, satellites showed nothing but empty space beyond the moon. The next, a massive ship appeared as if it had stepped out of nowhere. It was long and dark, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly like embers. It hovered silently over Earth, casting a shadow larger than any city. People called it the Arrival. News spread fast. Governments scrambled. Scientists argued. Soldiers got ready. No one knew what to expect. Was it a friend? A threat? A trick? Then the message came. A voice, calm, cold, and clearly not human, spoke through every radio, TV, and phone across the planet. We are the Zalari High Command. We have watched you for centuries. You are primitive, chaotic, and weak, but we offer you a choice. Serve under our banner, or be left behind. That was all. No demands for surrender. No threats of destruction. Just an ultimatum wrapped in polite words. And then the silence returned. Lena Carter sat in her barracks at Camp Lejeune, staring at the small screen on her desk. The news looped again and again. Footage of the Zalari ship, interviews with generals, clips of protests in major cities. Some people were scared. Others were angry. A few were hopeful. She wasn't sure how she felt. She was 28, a Marine sergeant, and had seen more than most. She'd been deployed twice, once to Syria, once to Nigeria, and had earned a Purple Heart for taking shrapnel in the leg during a firefight. She didn't talk about it much. Didn't like being called a hero. She just did what needed to be done. Now there was a new war on the horizon, and this time it wasn't against humans. Still watching that? Said a voice from the doorway. Evan Doyle leaned against the frame, arms crossed. He was shorter than Lena by a few inches, with brown hair that always looked like he forgot to comb it. He was a medic before he was anything else, which meant he saw more death than most people could handle. Somehow he still smiled. I don't know what else to do, Lena said, turning off the screen. Feels like the whole world's holding its breath. Evan walked in and dropped onto the bed opposite hers. They're giving people a choice, right? Join their army or stay home. Yeah, Lena said, but not really a choice. If they think we're inferior, why even ask? Maybe they're not here to conquer us, Evan said. Maybe they want help. Lena gave him a look. You believe that? He shrugged. Doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what they do. There was a knock at the door. Captain Ramirez poked his head in. Carter, Doyle, briefing in 10, gear up. Looks like some of you might be going somewhere. 2 hours later, Lena and Evan stood in a crowded room at Fort Bragg. Rows of soldiers filled the space, all volunteers. Some looked nervous. Others looked bored. Most looked confused. Up front, a general in full dress uniform paced as he spoke. The Zalari aren't asking for an invasion force, he said. They're asking for individuals, fighters, medics, engineers, people who can adapt and survive. They'll take 50 from the U.S. military, maybe more if others follow suit. A murmur passed through the crowd. They've already started talks with Russia, China, and the EU. The general continued. Most countries are saying no. They see this as a trap. Maybe they're right, but some of us see an opportunity. He paused, letting that sink in. We don't know what's waiting out there. We don't know what they're fighting. But if we don't go, someone else will. And maybe we'll end up wishing we'd gone first. Silence followed. Then a hand went up. What happens if we say yes? The general nodded. You'll be trained, tested, and, if approved, sent into space aboard a Zalari vessel. You'll serve under their command, but you'll keep your rank and identity. This isn't a surrender, it's a mission. Another pause. You'll be among the first humans to leave our solar system. More silence. Then another hand went up. Are we coming back? The general didn't answer right away. No one knows, he said finally. But if you go, you'll be part of something bigger than any of us, that's all I can tell you. 3 weeks later, Lena stood on a launch pad in Florida, dressed in a sleek black flight suit with a patch bearing the American flag. Around her, other soldiers suited up, some military, some civilian scientists, some ex-mercenaries with Too many secrets? Evan was beside her, adjusting the straps on his pack. You sure about this? He asked. Lena looked up at the sky. The Zalari shuttle was already descending, a smooth wedge of metal cutting through the clouds like a blade. Nope, she said. But I never am. They climbed aboard the shuttle with the others. Inside, everything was clean and quiet. No buttons, no levers, just glowing panels and smooth walls. It smelled sterile, like a hospital mixed with ozone. They were given seats near the back, no windows, just a soft hum as the shuttle lifted off. No roar. No shaking, just silence. Then, after what felt like minutes, the hum changed pitch. They were in space. The Vorthen was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. It was massive, kilometers long, shaped like a crescent moon with jagged spires along its spine. Its hull shimmered with energy fields, and strange lights pulsed along its surface like veins filled with starlight. Inside, the air was cool and dry. The walls were smooth, almost organic, lined with symbols that shifted when looked at directly. They were met by Zalari guards, tall, pale beings with elongated limbs and eyes like polished glass. Their voices were sharp and precise when they spoke, though translated through earpieces so humans could understand. Welcome to the Vorthen. You will follow orders. You will not interfere. You are guests, not equals. No greetings, no smiles, just rules. They were led through corridors that twisted and turned like labyrinths. Everything about the ship felt alien. Wrong, even. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's, making movement feel sluggish. The lighting flickered occasionally, as if the ship itself was alive and breathing. Eventually, they were brought to a large chamber where other recruits stood. Some were human, others weren't. There were 2 reptilian beings from a place called Vector, a trio of floating jellyfish-like creatures from a water world, and 1 massive insectoid from a hive species that communicated through clicking sounds. Lena glanced at Evan. He raised an eyebrow. Guess we're not the only primitives, he muttered. A Zalari officer stepped forward, tall and imposing, with armor that gleamed like liquid silver. This is Commander Valen, a translator said. You will address him as Sir or Commander. You will not question his orders, you will obey. He scanned the group with cold, unblinking eyes. You are here because your species believes it has value. We will test that belief. His gaze landed on Lena. You, he said. Step forward. She did. You are Carter? Yes, sir. He studied her for a moment. You are a fighter? I am. Then prove it. Without warning, a wall panel opened. From it stepped a Zalari warrior, clad in training gear. His muscles rippled beneath pale skin. Your first test begins now, Valen said. Lena blinked. Sir? You heard me. Fight. She looked at Evan, who gave her a half smile. Guess we're not here to make friends, he said. The fight was brutal. The Zalari warrior moved like lightning, striking with precision and power. Lena dodged, blocked, countered, but barely. Every hit felt like a hammer blow. Her body screamed in protest, but she didn't fall. She used what she had, her instincts, her pain tolerance, her ability to read movement. She feinted left, rolled under a strike, and drove her elbow into the warrior's ribs. It staggered him. For a moment, surprise flashed in his eyes. Then he came again. They fought until both were bruised and bleeding, until the floor was slick with sweat. Finally, Valen raised a hand. Enough. The warrior stepped back. Lena stayed standing. Valen approached her slowly. You did not win, he said, but you did not break. He looked at the others. This is what we seek. Resilience, willpower, adaptability. He turned sharply. You begin training tomorrow. Do not disappoint us. As the group was dismissed, Lena wiped blood from her lip. Evan offered a hand. You okay? He asked. She took it, standing slowly. Yeah, she said. Just getting started. Later that night, Lena sat alone in her quarters. A small, dimly lit room with a single cot and a window that looked out into the endless dark of space. She stared at the stars. Out here, Earth was just a dot. Small, fragile, and she was light years away from everything she knew. But she wasn't afraid. Not yet. Because whatever lay ahead, she would face it like she always had. Head first. The Vorthen was not built for comfort. It was built for war. Its halls were cold, its lights dim, and the air always carried a metallic tang. Every surface felt like it was watching, waiting. The Zalari didn't believe in luxury or unnecessary words. They believed in order, discipline, and efficiency, and they believed humans were still beneath them. Lena Carter knew that look, the way some Zalari officers glanced at her when they thought she wasn't paying attention, the way others avoided eye contact altogether. To them, she was still an experiment, not a soldier, but she didn't care about their opinions. She cared about surviving training. Every day was a test. Physical endurance, tactical drills, simulated battles. She learned how to use Zalari weapons, long, sleek rifles that fired bursts of energy so fast they blurred. She trained in zero gravity, learning how to move, fight, and kill in open space. Evan Doyle trained beside her, though his focus was different. As a medic, he studied alien biology, learning how to treat wounds from weapons he'd never seen before. He worked with Zalari healers who were skeptical at first, but slowly began to respect his knowledge. Still, no matter how hard they worked, the Zalari kept their distance until the call came. It was simple and direct. All recruits report to combat stations. We are under threat. The Krell. No one had told Lena much about them, only that they were dangerous. Now she saw why. They came without warning, a swarm of insect-like ships tearing through space like locusts. Their hulls were black and jagged, moving in patterns that defied logic. Some ships twisted mid-flight. Others split apart, releasing smaller drones that flew like angry hornets. The Vorthen responded instantly. Its massive engines roared to life. Energy shields flared around the ship. Weapons locked on target. Then the battle began. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Lights turned red. Orders echoed over the comms. Lena and Evan ran to their assigned station, a gun turret near the lower deck. They weren't part of the main crew yet, just trainees. But there weren't enough hands to go around. Tell me we're not actually doing this, Evan said as they climbed into the turret chamber. Lena checked her gear. We are. He looked out the viewport. The stars were gone, replaced by fire and death. I've never fired a real shot in space, he admitted. You'll learn quick, she said. A voice crackled over the comms. Trainees, stay sharp. You're live now. The turret hummed. To life. The controls glowed blue. Lena took the left side, Evan the right. Then the Krell came. The first wave hit hard. Dozens of small drones surged toward the Vorthen, weaving between beams of plasma fire. Some exploded against the shields. Others got through, slamming into the hull with deafening impacts. Inside the turret, Lena's fingers danced across the controls. Her targeting system lagged. Zalari tech wasn't designed for human reflexes, but she adjusted on instinct. She fired. A beam of white-hot energy lanced out, cutting through two drones in a flash. A third spun away, damaged but still moving. Got one! Evan shouted. His shot missed, then corrected, hitting another drone square in the engine. More kept coming. Outside, the battle raged. Zalari fighters launched from the Vorthen, diving into the chaos like arrows shot from a bow. Larger enemy ships hovered in the distance, launching waves of attacks. Inside, the ship shook with every impact. Over the comms, a Zalari officer barked orders. Defensive line holding. But the core is exposed. If they breach us, we fall. Lena gritted her teeth. Not happening. She spotted a group of drones breaking formation, heading straight for a weak point in the ship's armor. Evan, she said, cover me. Without waiting for a response, she grabbed a nearby control panel and rerouted power from the secondary turrets to hers. The screen flickered. Then the targeting system updated. Now she could see everything. Enemy paths, trajectories, weak points. She fired again. This time, she didn't miss. A clean burst tore through 4 drones in a single second. Sparks filled the void where they had been. Holy hell, Evan muttered. How did you do that? Figured it out, she said. Another explosion rocked the ship. We need more help, he said. Lena looked around. The other turrets were busy. No one else was close. She made a decision. Hold this spot, she said. I'm going topside. Evan blinked. You're what? I'm going up. Before he could argue, she was already moving. Lena sprinted through the ship, dodging falling debris and slipping on spilled coolant. She passed injured Zalari warriors being dragged to med bays. She heard screams behind sealed doors. When she reached the upper deck, the battle was even worse. A section of the hull had cracked. Smoke poured from the breach. Several Zalari soldiers were trying to seal it, but the pressure was too high. Every second, more oxygen escaped into space. And outside, something worse was happening. A large Krell vessel had latched onto the Vorthen, its claws digging into the metal like a parasite. Tendrils of organic material slithered into the wound, spreading like infection. Inside the ship, a Zalari officer shouted orders. We must sever the link or it will consume us. Lena didn't wait for permission. She grabbed a welding torch from a tool rack and ran toward the breach. Hey! Someone yelled. What are you doing? She didn't answer. She jumped. For a moment, she was weightless. Then she slammed into the hull, boots magnetizing to the metal. Cold air bit at her skin. Stars surrounded her. She moved fast. The Krell tendril pulsed like a living thing. It tried to lash out at her, but she ducked under it and pressed the torch to the base. The metal hissed. Sparks flew. The tendril writhed, pulling back. She kept cutting. Behind her, she heard someone shout, Evan. He was there, holding onto the edge of the ship, firing his sidearm at smaller Krell drones that tried to latch on. You're insane, he yelled. Maybe, she shouted back. With one final cut, the tendril snapped. The Krell ship shuddered, then detached, floating away like a dead thing. The breach began sealing itself automatically. The danger was gone, for now. Back inside, Lena collapsed onto the floor, breathing hard. Evan dropped beside her. You almost died, he said. She looked at him. Didn't. He shook his head. You're crazy. So are you. They both laughed, tired and shaking. Then footsteps approached. Commander Velan stood above them, silent for a long moment. Around them, other Zalari gathered. Finally, he spoke. You acted without orders. Lena met his gaze. Yes, sir. You used our systems in ways they were not designed. She nodded. And you saved this ship. Silence followed. Then, slowly, Valen extended a hand. She took it. He pulled. Her up. You are not Zalari, he said. But today you fought like one. He turned to the others. This is the kind of warrior we seek. Not perfect, not polished, but willing to act when needed. The room stayed quiet. Then, one by one, the Zalari nodded. Respect, earned not by birth or rank, but by action. Later that night, Lena sat alone in her quarters again. Her body ached. Her mind raced. She replayed the battle in her head. Every movement, every shot, every breath she nearly lost. There was a knock at the door. Evan walked in, holding 2 cups. Thought you might need this, he said. She took one. It smelled like coffee, but tasted off. Zalari brew, he explained. It's strong. She drank anyway. He sat down across from her. They're starting to listen, he said. Did you see the way they looked at you after the fight? She shrugged. Maybe. They don't hate us anymore. They still don't trust us. No, he agreed. But they're scared of us now. That made her smile. She looked out the window. Earth was far behind them. So was the past. Out here, among the stars, she wasn't just a Marine. She was something more. And the galaxy hadn't seen anything yet. The battle had changed things. Lena could feel it in the way some Zalari looked at her now. not with disdain or curiosity, but with something close to respect. Not all of them, of course. There were still those who saw humans as reckless and undisciplined. But there was no denying what she had done. She had saved part of the Vorthen. She had proven that humans could fight, adapt, and win. Still, not everyone was happy about it. Commander Valen had acknowledged Lena's actions, but not every officer agreed with him. Some saw the growing number of human recruits as a threat to Zalari tradition. Others worried that letting humans into their military would weaken their authority. One of those officers was Commander Threxalvor. He was older than Valen, taller too, with deep-set eyes and a voice like grinding stone. He had served in dozens of wars and believed strongly in Zalari ways: strict hierarchy, rigid discipline, and absolute loyalty to the high command. He did not like change, and he did not like Lena Carter. Training became harder after the battle. New drills were introduced, longer, more brutal. Recruits were pushed to exhaustion. Mistakes were punished harshly. Sleep was rare. Evan Doyle noticed it first. "They're trying to break us," he said one night as he and Lena sat in the mess hall, picking at their food. Lena didn't answer right away. She was tired. They both were. She finally said, "They don't want us here." "Yeah," Evan muttered. "But we're not going anywhere." The next morning, they found out just how serious the Zalari were. At dawn, all human recruits were gathered on the training deck. The room was cold, lit by flickering lights that made shadows dance across the walls. Threxalvor stood at the front, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Behind him, two massive Zalari warriors flanked him like statues. He spoke without emotion. "You have proven strength," he said. "That much cannot be denied, but strength alone does not make a soldier. Discipline, obedience, and unity are what win wars, not individual glory." His gaze swept over the group. "You believe you belong here. We will test that belief." Then he gestured to the side. A door opened. From it came a line of Zalari trainees, elite cadets from the most respected bloodlines. They moved in perfect unison, silent and deadly. Threxalvor turned back to the humans. "For the next cycle, you will compete against our best. You will follow their rules, their pace, their methods." He paused. "If you fail, you will be removed from service." Silence followed. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "There are no second chances." The trials began immediately. First was endurance. The recruits were taken to the lower decks where gravity was increased beyond normal levels. They ran for hours under the weight, muscles burning, lungs screaming. Some collapsed. Others kept going. Lena refused to stop. Evan stumbled, once but only once. Then he forced himself up and kept moving. Next was stealth. They were sent into dark corridors filled with motion sensors and hidden patrols. If detected, they failed. It was a game of patience, timing, and silence. Lena used what she knew: how to move quietly, how to hide in plain sight. She led a small team through the maze, avoiding detection until the final checkpoint. Evan wasn't as fast, but he was clever. He used sound tricks, dropping tools in one area to draw attention while slipping past unnoticed. Then came combat, hand-to-hand fights. No weapons, just fists, feet, and instinct. Lena faced off against a Zalari cadet twice her size. He was strong, precise, and fast. Every strike landed like a hammer blow. But Lena didn't fall. She took hits, blocked others, waited for an opening. When it came, she used it. She twisted under his guard, drove her knee into his stomach, then slammed her elbow into his jaw. He staggered. The match ended. She won. Others weren't so lucky. Some Zalari recruits fought dirty. They ganged up. They cheated. They tried to hurt more than test. But the humans held their own. By the end of the week, half the Zalari cadets had been pulled from the program. Only a few passed the tests. But every human recruit remained standing. Despite their success, tensions grew. Some Zalari officers started treating the humans differently, coldly. Orders became sharper, tasks more dangerous. Even minor mistakes were punished severely. It was clear. This wasn't just about training anymore. It was about power. Threxel Vor wanted to show that humans didn't belong, that they couldn't handle real Zalari discipline, that they were still inferior. But Lena and the others weren't backing down. They trained harder, fought smarter, stuck together. Even among the Zalari, alliances began to form. Kalen, the young officer who had once mocked Lena, started helping her. He shared tactics, gave advice, warned her when Threxel Vor was watching. Mira Solveth, a Zalari bioengineer, worked closely with Evan. She admired human biology, fascinated by how quickly humans healed compared to Zalari. Not all Zalari hated them. Some were starting to see them as equals, but others, they saw them as threats. One night, Lena sat alone in the barracks cleaning her gear. Evan walked in, looking tired. "They're planning something," he said. She looked up. "Who?" "The ones who hate us," he said. "I heard them talking. Something's coming." She frowned. "What kind of something?" He shook his head. "Don't know, but I think it's big." She set her gear aside. "We need to be ready." Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there, danger was waiting, and the humans had just become its target. The attack came without warning. It started with a tremor, small at first like the ship was passing through turbulence. Then came the alarms, loud, piercing, and urgent. Lena Carter shot up from her cot, heart pounding. Evan Doyle was already pulling on his boots. What the hell was that? Before Lena could answer, the lights flickered, then turned red. "Alert. Intrusion detected. All personnel to battle stations." They didn't need to be told twice. Grabbing their gear, they ran into the hall. The corridors were filled with Zalari soldiers moving fast, weapons drawn. Some were shouting orders. Others were dragging injured crew members away from damaged sections of the ship. Something had hit the Vorthen, hard. Lena and Evan followed the flow of soldiers toward the command deck. When they arrived, Commander Valen was already there, barking orders. "We've been boarded," he said. "Unknown enemy, not Krell." That made Lena's stomach twist. If it wasn't the Krell, then who? Threxel Vor stood nearby, arms crossed. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with something close to fear. "This changes everything," he muttered. Then the ship shook again, this time worse than before. A section of the wall exploded inward. Smoke and fire poured out. Figures stepped through the wreckage, tall. Black armor. No faces, just smooth helmets and glowing eyes, and weapons that fired pure darkness. The battle was chaos. Lena barely had time to react before the enemy opened fire. Beams of black energy tore through the air, melting metal and flesh alike. Zalari. Warriors fell. Lena dove behind cover, pulling Evan down with her. "They're not holding back," he shouted over the noise. "No kidding," she yelled back. She peeked around the corner. One of the enemy soldiers was moving fast, cutting through Zalari lines like they weren't even there. She saw Kalen go down. Her stomach dropped. Without thinking, she grabbed a plasma grenade from a fallen soldier and pulled the pin. "Cover." "Me," she shouted. Evan nodded and started firing his sidearm, drawing attention. Lena sprinted forward, low to the ground. She reached the enemy soldier just as it turned toward her. Too late. She slammed the grenade against its chest and rolled. Away. The explosion lit up the corridor. The enemy staggered, armor cracked. Not dead, but stunned. She didn't wait. She grabbed Kalen and dragged him backward. He was bleeding badly, one arm mangled. Evan was beside them in seconds, applying pressure to the wound. "Stay with me," he said. Kalen groaned. "Didn't expect you to save me." Lena smirked. "You don't get to die yet." Outside, the battle raged on, but the tide was turning. The Zalari were pushing back, using the ship's defenses to seal off sections. More enemy soldiers kept coming, but slowly they were being contained, until another explosion rocked the ship. This one came from inside. The enemy had planted charges. One detonated near the engine core. The Vorthen shuddered violently. "Warning. Critical damage detected, core breach imminent. Panic spread, evacuation orders rang through the halls. Lena looked at Evan. "We have to move." He nodded, helping Kalen to his feet. Together they ran. They barely made it to the escape pods. The corridors were filled with smoke and bodies. Fires burned everywhere. The floor was slick with blood. As they neared the launch bay, another enemy soldier appeared. Lena raised her weapon, but it raised its hand and spoke, not in words, not in sound, in thought. "Cease resistance. You cannot win." Lena blinked. It wasn't speaking to her ears. It was speaking to her mind. Evan froze. So did Kalen. The voice continued. "You are not our target, but if you stand in our way, you will fall." Lena gritted her teeth. "Try and stop me." She fired. The enemy dodged, moving impossibly fast. It raised its weapon again, then stopped, its head tilted slightly. "You fight with purpose. That is rare." Another pause. "You may live." Then it vanished, like smoke in the wind. Gone. Lena stared at the spot where it had stood. "What the hell was that?" Evan asked. "I don't know," she said. "But we need to get off this ship." They evacuated with the others. As the escape pod launched, they watched the Vorthan burn behind them. The once proud warship was breaking apart, pieces floating into the void. Some Zalari ships managed to retreat. Others weren't so lucky. Lena sat in silence, watching the destruction. Evan sat beside her, tending to Kalen's wounds. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Kalen broke the silence. "They called themselves the Devourer," he said weakly. Lena looked at him. "How do you know that?" He coughed. "They showed me, in my mind. They want to erase us." Lena felt cold. Evan frowned. "Why? Why now?" Kalen shook his head. "They see weakness, and they exploit it." Silence returned. Then Lena whispered, "We can't let them win." Evan looked at her. "No," he said. "We can't." Back at the Zalari base, the survivors were questioned. Commander Valen wanted answers. Threxalvor wanted blame. Lena gave neither. She told them what she saw, what she heard, what she felt. The Devourer wasn't just another enemy. It was something worse, something ancient, and it had come for the galaxy. The Zalari Council debated for days. Some believed the Devourer was too powerful to fight. Others argued that humanity's presence had made them a target. Only Mira Solveth offered hope. She studied the data Lena provided, analyzed the Devourer's tactics, their weaknesses. "They are strong," she admitted, "but not invincible." Evan leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Mira tapped a screen. "Their minds are linked. If we can disrupt that link, we can weaken them." Lena looked at her. "You're saying we can beat them?" Mira met her gaze. "Yes, but not alone." Lena smiled. "Then we better start making friends." The war began with silence. No declarations, no warnings, no time to prepare. One moment, the Zalari colony world of Sarnvel was peaceful, its skies filled with floating cities and its oceans glowing under twin suns. The next, it was gone, destroyed, not just bombed, not just invaded, erased. The Devourer struck without mercy. Their black ships fell from the stars like shadows made real. They didn't land. They didn't negotiate. They simply consumed. Entire cities vanished in waves of dark energy. Millions died in seconds, survivors were few, hope was fewer, and the galaxy finally understood. This wasn't just a war, it was an extinction. Lena Carter stood on the observation deck of the Aegis, the first human-led Zalari warship. She wore her old Marine uniform, now modified with Zalari armor plating and a new insignia, one that combined both species. She looked out at the ruins of Sarnvel, her hands clenched into fists. Behind her, Evan Doyle leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "They're not holding back," he said quietly. "No," Lena agreed. "They never were." Commander Valen entered the room, his face lined with exhaustion. He had seen too much death, so had everyone. "The High Command has authorized full integration," he said. "Humans will lead squads. We will follow your tactics." Evan raised an eyebrow. "You mean you'll stop pretending we don't know what we're doing?" Valen gave him a long look, then nodded. "Yes." Lena stepped forward. "What's the plan?" Valen turned to a nearby screen. It showed a map of known space with red markers spreading outward like disease. "This is where they are heading next," he said. "We must stop them before they reach the core worlds." Lena studied the map. "Then we hit them first." Training became war. Every human recruit was given command roles. Some led small strike teams. Others took over entire squads of Zalari soldiers. Even medics like Evan were put in charge of field hospitals and emergency response units. For the first time, humans weren't just fighting alongside the Zalari. They were leading them. And the tactics were different. Zalari warriors preferred precision and order. Humans brought chaos. They used hit-and-run attacks. Ambushes in deep space. Decoy ships luring enemy forces into traps. They broke every rule of traditional warfare, and it worked. At the Battle of Kale Rift, Lena led a team of 50 through an asteroid belt. They boarded 3 Devourer ships and planted charges inside their cores. When the bombs went off, the shockwave destroyed half the fleet. At Threxall Station, Evan saved hundreds by using stolen Devourer tech to disrupt their mind link. For 20 minutes, the enemy stopped moving. That was all the time needed to push them back. Each victory came at a cost. Many died, including friends. Derek Langley, a quiet pilot from Texas, was one of them. He had flown supply missions behind enemy lines, always pushing the limits of his ship. During the Battle of Orin Prime, he flew straight into a swarm of Devourer drones to buy time for evacuees. He never came back. Lena stood beside his memorial plaque in the barracks, reading the words carved into metal. Derek Langley, pilot. Brother. Hero. Gone too soon, she touched the cold surface. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Evan stood behind her. He knew what he was doing, he said gently. She nodded. "Yeah, but it still hurts." Despite the losses, the tide began to turn. The Zalari started adopting human strategies. They learned to move fast, to adapt, to fight dirty when needed. Even Threxall Vor, who once wanted humans removed from service, began to change. He watched as Lena led a joint squad through a heavily fortified Devourer base. She didn't wait for orders. She didn't ask permission. She moved with instinct and purpose. And she won. Afterward, he approached her. "You fight like a Zalari warrior," he said. She gave him a tired smile. "Thanks." He studied her for a moment. "Your people have earned their place among us." That was the closest thing to praise she would ever get from him. But it meant something. Because now, even the strongest Zalari leaders believed in humanity. And that belief came at a price. The final battle came at Zyran Gap. It was a deep space zone between systems, far from any planet. The Devourer had built a massive station there, an anchor point for their invasion. If it fell, so did the rest of their advance. The combined Zalari human fleet arrived with everything they had. Dozens of warships, hundreds of fighters, thousands of soldiers. Lena stood aboard the Aegis watching the enemy line form. She turned to Kalen, who now commanded his own unit. "You ready?" she asked. He grinned. "Born ready." Mira Solveth stood nearby, adjusting a device that could scramble Devourer signals. "If this works," she said, "they won't be able to coordinate." Lena nodded. "Then let's make sure it works." The battle began. Energy beams lit up the void. Explosions painted the sky in fire and light. Fighters dove and twisted through wreckage and debris. Lena led a boarding party onto the Devourer station. Inside, the halls were dark and silent. The walls pulsed like living tissue. They fought their way deeper, cutting through enemy defenses. Every step was harder than the last. Finally, they reached the core. It was huge, a swirling mass of black energy connected to thousands of wires. It pulsed like a heart. Lena pulled out a detonator. "This ends here," she said. She placed the charge. Then the Devourer appeared. Not one soldier, the whole mind link, all at once, a voice echoed in her head. You cannot stop us. She gritted her teeth. We already have. She slammed the detonator. The explosion tore through the station. The core collapsed. The Devourer screamed. And then, silence. The silence after the blast was not peace. It was shock. The Devourer station had collapsed into itself, swallowed by its own destruction. The black energy that once powered it faded into the void like smoke in the wind. Lena Carter stood on the bridge of the Aegis, watching the last pieces of the enemy base drift away into space. Her body ached from the fight. Her ears still rang with the echo of the explosion. But she was alive, and so were they all. Behind her, Evan Doyle leaned against a control panel, breathing hard. You ever think we'd actually pull this off? He asked. Lena didn't answer right away. She looked at the screen showing the fleet, Zalari and human ships side by side, damaged but intact. Yeah, she said finally. I did. Evan smirked. You're crazy. She turned to him. Maybe. But we won. Outside, the warships began to regroup. Fighters returned to their carriers. Wounded were pulled from wreckage. Orders were given, voices tired but steady. They had done it. The Devourer threat was broken, not gone forever, but stopped. For now. Back at the Zalari capital world of Vorthan Prime, the survivors were honored. The sky above the city shimmered with light. Towering spires reached toward the stars, glowing with ancient symbols of power and tradition. The Zalari had ruled this system for centuries, believing themselves the strongest, the most advanced, the most disciplined. Now, they stood beside humans, not as masters or teachers, but as equals. In the Grand Hall of Honor, Lena walked slowly through the massive chamber. The floor was polished stone, reflecting the golden lights above. Around her, high-ranking Zalari leaders watched in silence. At the center of the room stood Commander Valen. Beside him was Threxel Vor. Neither man smiled, but both nodded as she approached. From behind a raised platform, an elder Zalari stepped forward. His voice was deep, calm, and filled with weight. The High Command recognizes the bravery of the human forces, he said. You came to us as strangers. You left as warriors. He gestured to a small group of humans standing nearby. Soldiers, medics, engineers, and people who had fought, bled, and died alongside the Zalari. To Lena Carter, the elder continued, we award the highest honor ever given to a non-Zalari. You have proven that strength is not only in blood or birth, but in will, courage, and sacrifice. A younger Zalari stepped forward with a medal, a piece of dark metal etched with glowing lines. Lena took it without hesitation. She looked out over the crowd. Among the faces were Zalari officers who had once doubted her. Some had even tried to break her. Now they bowed their heads in respect. Even Threxel Vor gave a small nod. That was enough. Later that night, Lena sat alone on a balcony overlooking the city. Stars blinked above, quiet and distant. She held the metal in her hand, turning it slowly. Footsteps approached. Evan joined her, leaning on the railing. You look like you're thinking too hard, he said. She smiled faintly. Just wondering what comes next. He looked up at the sky. Same thing that always comes next. Life. She handed him the medal. What do you think it means? He studied it. Means we proved something, that we belong here. Not just fighting, but standing beside them. She nodded. It's more than I thought we'd get. It's more than anyone expected. There was a pause. Then he added, You know they're asking for volunteers again. She raised an eyebrow. For what? A new mission, he said. Exploration, diplomacy, maybe more fights. She looked at him. You going? He shrugged. If you are. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked back at the stars. I don't think I'm done yet, she said. Across the galaxy, word spread fast. The humans had not only survived, they had led. Other species took notice. Some were curious, others wary. A few saw them as a threat, but one truth remained clear. Humanity was no longer just Earth's children. They were part of the stars. On the planet, Kalen 7, a new colony was built, one designed by both Zalari and human architects. Ships flew, flags bearing both species' symbols. Soldiers trained together. Scientists worked side by side. Mira Solveth led a research team studying devourer tech, hoping to learn how to prevent another attack. Kalen became a commander in the new joint, military force, training soldiers in hybrid tactics. Even Threxal Vor, once the greatest skeptic of humans, agreed to mentor young recruits, human and Zalari alike. Change was happening, slowly, carefully. But it was real. 1 year later, Lena stood before the Galactic Council. It was the first time a human had been invited to speak directly to the ruling bodies of multiple alien species. She wore her old marine jacket, modified with a Zalari insignia and a patch representing Earth. Before her sat beings of all shapes and sizes, some tall, some short, some made of metal, others of light. The leader of the council, a being known as High Speaker Zoran, addressed, "Her Lena Carter," he said. "You represent your people. What do you ask of us?" She stepped forward. "No demands," she said. "No ultimatums, just a place, a seat at the table." There was a pause, then Zoran nodded. "So be it." A chair was brought forward. It was placed among the others. Lena sat. For the first time, humanity had a voice in the fate of the galaxy, and she wasn't alone. Behind her, dozens of humans stood, diplomats, scientists, soldiers, explorers, all ready for what came next.